Why most DTC brands never become profitable. Spoiler alert, it's not the ads. So just super quick so you know who I am. My name is Luke and I own a consulting agency called Grape Fox. And what we do there is we work with mainly fashion brands, but personally I've also worked on the sides with brands in the beauty industry, fitness industry, lifestyle industry, footwear brands. So even though 90% of my clients are like in the fashion industry, I know this space really well. And I worked with more than 100 brands in the last 7-8 years. And I audited and talked to hundreds of founders in this space. So every single time someone comes to me, of course they come to me because they have a problem or they're not happy about their current situation. They want to grow past a certain level. They're not profitable enough. They barely break even. Sometimes a lot of times they even lose money. And here is what happens all the times. They come to me and when I ask them, what do you think is the bottleneck? They always respond with, I think we have a problem with paid advertising, or our paid advertising is too expensive, or I think our marketing is not that good and we should improve. They always, in the majority of cases, they constantly blame marketing or paid advertising all the time. But then when we go through when I do the audit, because I audit their whole business, so I check the prices, the unit economics, how much money they spend on variable costs, fixed costs, everything, like conversion rate, literally everything. There is one problem that I see every single time that I encounter constantly, and it's a gigantic one, and it is really, really high fixed costs. Meaning all of these founders, they spend too much money that they shouldn't have spent in the first place. So they are not really efficient and they tend to be a little bit too reckless with money. So even when they do well on paid advertising and marketing, they always end up without money. And so they see the bank account going down close to zero constantly. And then after a few months, they either get a loan from the bank or they raise more money from an investor. That's the story of 90% of the people I encounter in this space. But again, the problem is high fixed costs. So if you are not familiar with this, let's start from the basics. And let's define what a fixed cost is. So what's the difference between a fixed cost and a variable cost? A fixed cost is this. Regardless of how much money you are gonna make this month, you are gonna pay that price, you are gonna pay that cost. For example, if you have an office, even if you sell zero, you have to pay the rent. You cannot go to the landlord and be like, hey, sorry man, we had a bad month. They don't care, so you pay that cost. So that's what a fixed cost. You pay no matter what happens. Okay, so a variable cost, on the other hand, is a cost that fluctuates based on sales and volume. So, for example, if 1 month you don't sell much, you don't spend much. And so, for example, what is a variable cost when it comes to e-commerce and DTC brands? It's usually like shipping costs, for example. If you don't ship anything because you had a bad month, you don't spend a lot of money in variable costs. And so this is the difference. So the whole strategy, when you do this, when you run like a DTC brand, it should be try to keep your fixed costs as low as humanly possible. Because even when you have a good month, the next month, especially for example, again, as I told you, like a lot of my clients are in the fashion industry, the next month doesn't go as planned and they basically wipe out their bank account because all of a sudden they have to pay so much money that they don't have. So this is literally the basic. Like if you can keep these costs as low as humanly possible, you skyrocket your chances to win in here 100%. So what's the secret to stay lean in the DTC space? So if you own a brand, the secret is to move every single fixed cost where possible to a variable one. For example, sometimes I work with small brands, and with small I mean making less than $1 million a month in revenue, and they have their own warehouse, meaning they take care of the shipping, the packaging, they do everything in-house. And they're almost proud of this. They're like, no, we don't outsource this. But the problem is they suffer a lot in a lot of cases. Why? Because that's a fixed cost. Meaning when you have a bad month, you have to pay for the warehouse, for the wages, for the people, all the bills associated with it, and it's really expensive. So instead of owning your own facility, owning your own warehouse, dealing with logistic yourself, you outsource to, and you usually outsource to a 3PL. So by doing this, if you have a bad month, you pay almost nothing. You just have to pay for the storage of the products. That's it. That's what you do. You don't bring in-house everything logistic if you're not like a really big brand and you don't know what you're doing, because it's not worth it. And on the flip side, if you have a really good month and all of a sudden, I don't know, sales triple overnight, if you use a 3PL, so a third-party logistic partner, you can easily scale, because they are equipped to do this. They can send thousands of products per day. On the contrary, you might not be able to do this because you might have like a small operation, and so you become the bottleneck. So here is how you do this. Move everything to a variable cost. Let's say instead of hiring people where it makes sense, hire someone like a freelancer, and don't keep them on a monthly payroll if you cannot do that. Because again, when you have a bad month, you're gonna pay for it. So ask yourself, can I outsource this somewhere or to someone where this cost, it's not a fixed cost anymore? If the answer is yes, especially when you're like really small, outsource everything, because this is the beauty of this industry. You can outsource pretty much everything and integrate everything, and you basically integrate your own operation with everyone else around you. So do this. Move everything to a variable cost. So now that we talked about the importance of remaining lean, we need to talk about like what does it mean to be lean, because that's another problem. And it is, so I use the 10% rule, and the 10% rule says this: you don't want to spend more than 10% in fixed costs compared to your top line revenue. Meaning, if you make $100,000 a month in revenue, do not spend more than $10,000 a month on fixed costs. I had a bunch of clients that they were able to stay around like 7-8%, so they were exceptionally lean. Meaning, on a $1 million per month business, they were spending $80,000 a month on fixed costs, meaning offices, like wages, people, everything related to this. And when you have a business so lean, everything becomes so easy. If you look at the data and if you download the financial statements of the top brands on the planet, it's really tough in this space to go above like 15-20% net profit after all expenses. So you see a lot of brands, like especially in the fashion industry, again, where I work, especially like the ones doing really well, they end up at like 10-15% net profit after all expenses. So what does it mean? It means that there is not much room to fail. The floor is really low, and you cannot be sloppy in here, because if you spend more than you should, you're gonna break even, or even worse, lose money. So being exceptionally diligent and being really good with operations is necessary. It's like paramount to succeed. If you own and have physical stores that you own, you are gonna go above this, because there is no way to stay below 10% fixed cost if you have physical stores. But what's gonna happen is you have to spend less in marketing, because when you have physical stores, they basically act like marketing, because people pass in front of the store. So instead of paying to be shown on Meta, Instagram, YouTube, Google, whatever, you have a physical store. So you pay less in marketing, but you have more fixed costs. So that's the only exception. But if you don't have physical stores, below 10%, maximum 10%. So why is this such a big deal? So I consulted a brand recently, and they were making around $1 million a month in revenue, and they were spending $250 a month in fixed costs. That's a lot of money, $250,000 in fixed cost, when basically you have a store on Shopify. It's insane. And so they were actually losing money every single month. They came to me and they were like, hey, we are struggling. We cannot be profitable. We don't know why. Our cost per acquisition is too high. We're spending too much money on Meta. We are too dependent on Meta. And they were overspending on this. So by going from 25%, like they did, to 10%, they were able to free like $150,000 a month. That money was already there. They were just overspending money on things that were not needed. They had a really, really big team with too many people, the majority of them completely useless, that were not doing anything. So instead of spending money on an exceptionally expensive office, if you take that money and you put them and you funnel them into Google Ads, I promise you, they're gonna bring you way more. So basically I told them, just cut these costs and you're gonna be fine. So I'm gonna show you what it means to be bloated, because I have a story that happened recently to me. Again, I had to do an audit for a brand from Germany. They approached me probably around like a month ago. And again, same stuff. Complaining about not being profitable, complaining about not being able to scale past a certain level. We got stuck here. We don't know what to do. What are we doing wrong? So here is what was happening. They were making around $200,000 a month in revenue. So a small e-commerce, nothing major, really small. And they had around like 60,000 euros a month in fixed costs for something so small. Again, 25% of their top line revenue in fixed costs. So they had a CEO, a director, a brand director, a bunch of people managing like their social media, and basically what they were doing is they were just taking a bunch of pictures from the shootings and they were just reposting content. But the problem is, all those people, they cost money. On top of this, they had not one, not two, 3 agencies. They had an agency from Germany managing their Meta ad accounts, another one from the UK managing like their Google ad accounts, and then they had another agency, I don't remember from where, managing their Shopify. So they basically had all of these people plus 3 agencies to manage something so small. And that's insane. That's literally insane to have, especially when you're on Shopify. When you're on Shopify, that is a system that allows you to pretty much manage everything by yourself. And if you don't know how to do it, first of all, you learn, because you don't have the money to afford this. And second of all, you can pay like a freelancer to truly help you. And that was the situation. They were spending so much money on fixed costs like this that didn't really move the business forward, and they got stuck. So, and that's a business that can be run by 3 people, a founder and a couple of people, 2-3 people, that's it. You have like a bunch of people part-time helping with customer support, that's all it takes. Because come on, $200,000 a month, that's nothing. So you cannot have so many people working on such a tiny brand. This is the structure that I see in a company making at least 5-6 times the revenue of them, even more. So yeah. And also, by the way, you don't need all of these agencies. Stay away from all of these agencies, because if you need so many agencies, then you're doing something wrong. This is what I truly believe. So the first thing to remember is, when someone tries to fix this, is not like what's the cheapest option, how can I save as much money as possible. That's a great question, but I think there is like a better one, and it is, what is something that if I put like $1 into this, it's gonna bring me back like $10. Meaning, we have limited resources, all of us. We have limited money, limited time, limited skills, limited willpower. And so we have to be really strategic when we decide to deploy capital, resources, whatever it is. Because again, if you have $20,000 a month more to spend on your brand, depending where you spend this money, you're going to have like really drastic results. So the question should be, is it intelligent to spend, I don't know, $4,000 a month when I'm so small on an agency to manage my Shopify store? To do what? To upload a bunch of products and change the home page a couple of times a month? That's it? No, keep the money, do it yourself, learn how to do this, and invest your $4,000 into something else, into something that has, again, the ability to move the business forward. And so what do people do instead? This is another story, but this is from probably like a couple of years ago. They were doing pretty bad. It was a fashion brand from Milan, so Italy, Milan, and they were spending too much money on fixed costs. They had thin margins and they were running out of cash. So what did they do? I don't know how, but they raised a lot of money from an investment fund from Dubai, so Saudi Arabia. And so they got, I don't remember how much, like a couple of million euros. Guess what they've done? They decided, by the way, they were already doing bad, and they decided to rent a big place in the middle of Milan that was costing around, basically in dollars, around $20,000 a month. And this is without like paying the people to work there, all the bills like electricity, everything else. So they decided to open this place that became like a massive liability for them because they were already losing money. So what they did is, let's open something that it's gonna take even more money away from us, and that is not gonna bring us anything. So they spent all of this money. They opened like this boutique in a stupid street in Milan that was not even like that popular, and they started to lose even more money. So that's like what you call like a suicide. Again, they knew it. They decided to move forward regardless. And I told them, guys, that's not the choice. That's not what you should do. Like, you should remove and improve what you have, because if you do this, what's gonna happen in like 12 months, you're gonna be without money again. Guess what happened? 18 months later, they ran out of money and they declared bankruptcy because nobody wanted to lend them money ever again, because they were they were so reckless with money. So this is a real story. They got stuck and they went bankrupt. You know, I'm gonna tell you a personal story, and maybe you dealt with something similar in your life as well. I have a friend of mine, and so basically he got engaged with this girl. They started to date, and the relationship was terrible. They constantly argued. It looked like they didn't even like each other, and it went like this for like a very long time. And so I asked him many times, like, why do you stay in this relationship? Because it doesn't bring you anything. You don't even sleep together anymore. Like, you just hate each other and you just complain, you just argue. It's terrible. Even when you go out, sometimes we went out together, they were constantly arguing. When he was talking, she was looking at him with almost like disgusted. And I even wanted to ask her, like, why do you stay with him if you dislike him so much? But anyway, so they stayed together for a very long time, 5-6 years. And I moved out because I was living in a really small village in Italy. I moved away. And when I came back, I saw him and I was like, hey, how is it going with her? We are talking about 6-7 years of relationship together, a miserable one. And he said, you know, I decided to fix the relation. We decided to work on our relationship and to fix everything. And I jokingly said, oh, so you're going to break up? And he said, no, we're going to have a kid. So their mentality was, we are going to have a kid to fix our relationship. We both know it's a stupid idea to bring a kid into this world to fix your relationship, because we know how it went. Terrible. You know, if before they were arguing, then they start to argue like 10 times more. They didn't even have money, so they also started to struggle financially. But why did they do this? The reality is, both of them, they knew that their relationship sucked. But because they didn't want to accept reality, they decided to bring a kid to this world because there was ego involved. They wanted to prove to people that no, our relationship is okay. And that's what they've done. And it's the same with the guys that opened like the boutique in Milan. Their brand was failing. They were spending too much money and they pretended everything was fine. Let's do what big successful brands are doing. Let's open a boutique. Let's have a kid. And they went bankrupt. So another thing I would like to say here is that's impossible, because this is something that I hear a lot when I talk to founders. Because when I tell them, hey, you have to spend less than 10% of your top line revenue on fixed costs, they always respond to me with like, nah, that's not possible. Nah, you're crazy. Because, for example, they are spending 25. So when they see how little they have to spend, they're like, how? And also, they don't want to do this because they know they have to fire people, and they don't want to fire them. They need to get rid of that office that they have, that it's completely useless. And so, like, the most successful brands in this space that are really growing fast are spending less than this, or they don't go above 10%. So if they do it, you can do it too. The reason is you cannot achieve it because you don't know how to do it. That's the reality. You don't know how to do it. Because, again, other people are doing it, so you can technically do this too. You cannot say that's impossible. You should say, I have no idea how to do this. But, again, you want to spend money to drive the business forward, not to pay useless rent in the middle of London, Miami, New York, when the majority of your sales, they come from Shopify online. You know, you can have an office like that if you can truly afford it. Otherwise, nope. You have to grow first, make way more money, and then later on, we will think about this. So there is a method that I called like set the ceiling first. And I do this in a lot of things in my life, but here is the problem. Instead of you spend the money first and then you're like, oh shit, I cannot stay below this number, you do the opposite. You set a ceiling and you say, I cannot spend more than this. That's the budget. Let's say you make $200,000 a month and you have to say to yourself, I only have $20,000 a month for this. That's it. I have nothing else. And you have to find a way to stay below that level. And when you do this exercise, you have to make choices. Because that's the point. You have to truly make choices. You are forced to make a choice. Let's say you have two people. You cannot have both of them. You have to fire one of them. So you have to ask yourself, who am I gonna keep? So you have to truly think about like these people who truly brings a lot of value, and then you have to make a decision. You cannot keep it all. You cannot have it all. You have to make choices, and you have to cut. You have to remove. And so I truly think this is the right approach, to set a ceiling first. Or you can also say, you can play like the game of, I read in a book about this concept, and I don't remember where, but they were talking about the game of constraints. Meaning you put a constraint and you say, I cannot go above this. And then you have to find a way to put yourself in that box. And you will be surprised to see what you can achieve when you have no choice. And you're like, hey, I cannot go above this. You know, it's like life or death. Like, I cannot go past this. So, and all of a sudden, you will start to think about different solutions, like alternative things you can do. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I did it. So, do this exercise, put a number, maximum 10%, and then you cannot go above that. Again, you cannot. And you will see that you are going to find a way. And if you don't, if you spend twice as much the money every single time you try this, you have to reevaluate everything you are doing, because you are doing something deeply wrong. So now we have to talk about why being lean wins. Because you never eat zero. And what does it mean? It means that when you live way below your capabilities, you spend way less than you could spend, even if you have, again, we are talking about fashion now, because I'm talking about a new launch. But let's say you launch a new collection and it doesn't go as good as you planned. Whatever. I mean, you can sustain this because, again, you have room to fail. But if you live paycheck to paycheck every month, you have a bad launch and you get wiped out. And so, and also another really big advantage is when you don't lose money, you don't panic. So, for example, a problem I see a lot of times is, I don't know, people investing, they want to scale with paid advertising. So they launch, they try to push above a certain level, but then they get scared because if they have a bad week, they're like, no. We have to lower the budget, because they cannot sustain a single bad week because they don't have money. And so that's another problem, is you cannot truly play the game if you get scared constantly. Every single week you get scared and you're like, nah, we cannot do this. But if you have a lot of room to play with, you're like, hey, let's see how it goes. Because even if it doesn't go amazingly well for us, it's not gonna be the end of the world. So we can do this. And that gives you like an insane advantage, because you can try things and you can sustain them for a long period of time to truly see if they work or they don't. So this is huge. And also mentally speaking, it's a better life, because managing a business that is on the brink of bankruptcy every month, it's just terrible. It's not worth it. And a lot of founders in this space, they deal with this. So that's not a great life. And so we are basically at the end of the video, and we need to talk about why lean wins. And I call this like the accelerator, because there is another advantage. If on one hand, when you have a bad month, you are not gonna suffer that much. On the flip side, when you have a really good month and you start seeing like sales picking up and going up, all of a sudden you have way more money than other people. You start to have way more cash in your bank account, and so you can capitalize on something. Because sometimes, I don't know, for X amount of reasons, like there are like a lot of ups and downs when you have a DTC brand. And for no reason, all of a sudden, I don't know, in June, July, sales skyrocket out of the blue. You don't really know why. It's just the market reacting really positively. If you have a lot of money because you save them, and because you don't spend much and you have a lot of cash, you can truly push. And you can accelerate really, really, really quick. It's the same thing about the stock market. People that save money and they have a lot of liquidity, a lot of cash, they usually make a lot of money during a market crash because they have a lot of money to spend. So when everything goes down, so they can truly push. And everyone else, they cannot do anything. So this is another advantage, is you can accelerate when the time is right. When you launch that product that has like really great product market fit that people really love, you can push. And you can push so much that you have no idea how quick you can go from like $200,000 a month to $1 million a month. That's the beauty of this. When you stumble upon something with potential, you can really go fast. This is like the end of the video, is keep the fixed costs as low as is humanly possible, ideally below 10%. When things go well, don't bloat, because that's another problem. Is sometimes people have a really good month and they're like, wow, we are ready to go, we're ready to push, and they start to hire too many people. I'm like, wait, push a little bit more, go way above this, and then maybe you're gonna hire someone else like later on. And again, remember, you can grow things without fixed costs. You just have to move them into like a variable cost, something that you can remove if things go wrong, or that you don't pay if you don't sell that much. And then the last one, as we just said, is wait until the cars line up and then go as hard as you can. So have a good day or have a good night and take care. Bye.